I'm about to head out and go for a walk, but yesterday I made a bit of a boo-boo because of my hearing, and I figured I'd talk about my hearing. So for those of you that don't know, I'm half deaf. I'm deaf in this side. I'm also half blind, but that's another story. So I made it to the woods, and it's not that windy, but with my hearing. So yesterday when I was on the beach, I couldn't hear the wind because it was on my deaf side. But so I thought the camera would be fine, but obviously the camera mic isn't fine. So it was like if I was standing this way and the wind was like hitting me in this side, but it wasn't. So I didn't even notice that it was that windy. And something else I've noticed as well when I'm editing is I've got headphones on that go on both ears. If I can hear it, then it's coming through my left ear. But if it's not going through the right ear, I don't notice unless I literally take my headset off. So what I'm going to do is change the track so you hear, if you're wearing headsets like me, and you'll notice that for you it sounds really weird, but for me it's just normal. But I guess that's the thing about being deaf, or what deaf is, because having been in the deaf community, there's lots of different meanings behind the word deaf, because you've got profoundly deaf, i.e. you can't hear at all. Cochlear implants help you hear, you've got half deaf, some people are hard of hearing. It's very different depending on, again, what hearing impairment you have. So I'm part of the deaf community, but not profoundly deaf. And I know some BSL, British Sign Language, but not great. It's more SSE, so sign supported English. But again, like some people that are profoundly deaf, lip read, they don't use BSL. It gets very complicated. We are taking this route. You're listening out for the birds and you're pointing in which direction. I can't hear which direction, I just hear the noise. I'm just like, yeah, there's birds, don't know where they are though. A hole for some sort of animal, at least, whether it's a hare, a badger, or I don't know.
Looking at looks more badger. It's like, could be a hare.
You're a zoology student.
Badgers, no, it wouldn't be a badger. It's too big. It's too small for a badger. Yeah, we did the green walk.
So we've just done that one, and we're going to do the red one.
The red one is 3/4 an hour.
It's either the red or the white. The white goes through. So when we get to that point, we just come back?
The red is 1.25 miles. The white's 2.5 miles. It took us an hour to do 3 miles.
We were dawdling.
So I thought I might as well do that one.
Sounds good. I will be checking for ticks after the walk. Yeah, I forget. Yeah, no matter what direction I turn, it's just noise. I can't tell where the beach is, it's just noise. Just a reminder, we are still in Scotland. You know, I wasn't expecting to be in Scotland for over a week and not have experienced any rain on any of the walks. It's just a bit crazy, really. So to clarify, I'm deaf in this ear, which means I can't hear from this side, but I still have worked in the hearing world. I can still hear, I can still communicate with most people, albeit I lip read quite a lot. But that leads to one of the more frustrating parts about my hearing. Unless someone is wearing a cochlear implant or a hearing aid of some sort, there is no way to know whether someone can hear or can't hear. So a lot of people, most people that I've experienced, assume you can hear. Some common simple examples from school is when someone is talking at the front of the class, when they turn around to write something on the board, I can't lip read and I can't hear as clearly, so to me it's just noise. I can't isolate the words or really identify what's being said. In a similar way, when talking in groups, if you're in a circle, then if someone turns to face someone else and talk, I can't lip read and I can't quite see their face, or I can't hear what they're saying because they're speaking in a different direction and there's other noise. Again, it's just noise going on, so I recognize someone's saying something or they are saying something, but what they're saying, I don't know. Which leads to some of the more frustrating things I hear people say to me, which is, "Oh, didn't you hear me?" "No, I didn't." Or, "Oh, don't worry, it doesn't matter." Well, it might matter, I don't know, I can't make that choice because I haven't heard. And then attention is brought into this as well. "Oh, you should have been paying attention. You should pay more attention." Well, I can't pay more attention if I can't hear or lip read what it is that you're trying to communicate to me. As a person, as a performer, a lot of things that I try and do, like I sit to the right side of the room, or I try and position myself so I can see the person speaking, or I ask people to repeat themselves. A lot. But once you've asked someone to repeat something twice, the third time is a little bit iffy, the fourth time is just awkward. It seems socially awkward because they don't think you're paying attention or you're just taking the mick. And oftentimes it's because people aren't speaking clear enough. They're either mumbling under their breath and not opening their mouth properly because they're just trying to repeat something, or they speak quickly, or they miss words out, or they skip things, or they change things. And saying something and then saying something in a different way actually makes it harder for me, from my experience at least, because you've got a couple of words from whatever it is they were saying, and then they say something else. You're like, wait, what is that? That doesn't match. So I end up playing puzzles in my head, trying to fit words together that I've heard, and ends of words that I've sort of heard, and match that with the mouth to try and figure out what the sentence says, and then bring in the context of the conversation to understand what's trying to be communicated. So for me, a lot of the times when someone says E, because Danny is my name, E at the end of it, I'm like, oh, was that my name? So I have to look at the context of whatever's going on, what they're talking about. So I attune my focus to the ends of words or certain parts of sentences or the way mouths look for certain words for either my name or something related to me that I may need to pay attention to. Which, as you may be able to imagine, is a lot of effort. So when I'm socializing or coaching or doing things in groups, there's a lot of effort that goes into communicating. I speak a lot with my gestures, my hands anyway, even before doing SSE. So I was still using my body to help communicate whatever was going on. And my family are actually really good at doing this. They'll point, or they'll wave, or they'll touch you on the shoulder to grab your attention, or they'll try and use gestures in a way that assists. So eating is an obvious one, like, "Are you hungry?" But teachers, sports coaches, educators, people in government buildings, for example, or any sort of retail store, none of those people seem to acknowledge that unless they've had experience with people that are in the deaf community, whether they are hard of hearing, they know someone hard of hearing, or profoundly deaf, or sign language, or any of those sorts of people. And this is where Deaf Awareness Week becomes, for me, really important. It's not about, oh, everyone needs to learn a sign language, wherever it's from, BSL, ASL, or whatever. It's about being aware of what you could do to help people, whether it is use gestures, or not speak with the sun behind you, or not have reflections, or face someone when they're talking to you. It's simple things like that that I think can help myself, but also others. But then on top of that, taking an ecological approach, embodied communication is more effective. We've seen that in loads of studies, loads of research, where it's using gestures, using analogies, using stories to explain, to communicate whatever it is you're trying to communicate to another person. So as coaches, or as I coach myself, I'm looking when I'm communicating not to just use verbal language, but to also use body language and gestures. Pointing. Pointing is one of those things I was always told when I was younger, don't point because it's rude, but it's extremely helpful. So coaches, just point to the person. I don't get why it's rude. I personally was brought up to be told it was rude, but I don't understand why. So point to people if you're going to talk to them, or wave in front to grab their attention. Just waving hello and goodbye as well. It's clear communication. Having lived through COVID with the mask, a lot of people recognise actually they rely on lip reading, or maybe their hearing isn't as good as it once was, or you've got older people that are starting to lose their hearing, maybe they're not aware of losing their hearing yet. Gestures help. But this is where I start thinking about demonstrations and coaching, because demonstrations can be useful, but there's also limitations and negatives that come from some demonstrations. For example, if you demonstrate how to do something, they may think that is the best way to do the thing, so they try and copy you. This is where, as a coach, when you demonstrate, you might want to demonstrate something that's ineffective either for them or for the situation they're in, or maybe because you're physically able to do something they can't, you demonstrate a way to succeed at a task with constraints, but not a way that they could succeed at the task. So it's about manipulating the gestures. One experience I had recently was coaching a deaf person trampoline. For me, that's a pike jump, but for them, it was a seat landing, which are two drastically different skills. So trying to navigate that communication was interesting, but I think that emphasizes the complexity of communication. Yes, words can mean similar things or completely different things, but so can gestures. So combining words, gestures, demonstrations, and prior experience and future expectations all together through communication is why it's so complicated to coach, teach, educate, whatever you want to put there, but why it's also really important to not just rely on speaking and using words. And if you haven't heard me talk about VARK learning styles before, when you hear visual, auditory, reading or writing and then kinesthetic, if you're deaf, well, one of those styles isn't possible, which again is where I would say embodied communication and effective communication is more useful, or maybe a better reframing of VARK learning styles, but maybe that's a topic for another video.